you're not talking about the best receiver. You're just talking about the best hands.
But hands.
With the Raiders, we always said cheating was encouraged.
Let's start by saying this is not the top 10 greatest receivers of all time.
He throws it to Rice. He's got it. Touchdown 49ers.
No, instead, this is the top 10 greatest hands. So just because you're number one on the depth chart doesn't mean you made our list.
I look at good receivers, even great receivers by a lot of standards, the TOs of the world. You see him drop the ball.
Even at the highest level, finding a receiver with great hands isn't guaranteed.
He's got to be the sickest man in America.
A guy with good hands doesn't necessarily have to be the fastest nor the quickest, but if he has good hands, just get the ball in his area and he'll catch it.
Chris Felder with a one-hand grab.
Have you seen me miss a ball like that? Okay.
If it hits their hands, they catch it. That was the standard. That was the standard in 1958. It's the standard in 2009, and I suspect it'll be the standard in 2059, too.
Throws his pass. Caught by Clark.
And while some great receivers have great mouths,
Who can make a play? I can.
we're more interested in the players that let their fingers do the talking.
Holy cow, what a catch! If you talk to most coaches, they'll take a guy with great hands, usually over a guy who's a great receiver, because guys with great hands, very low maintenance. Very low maintenance.
If I'd have caught 3 passes and we'd have won, it would have been fine.
Guys with the great receivers, typically a pain in the ass.
They hate to love me in here, baby.
The number 10 greatest hands of all time, Marvin Harrison.
In the top 10?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, I give Marvin Harrison 10.
I would think he's higher than number 10.
Yeah, I put him a little higher on that list.
Marvin Harrison.
Marvin Harrison, great hands, amazing work ethic, phenomenal mustache. Everyone knows you need to have fantastic hands to have a fantastic mustache.
Many catches, manly mustache. That's Marvin Harrison in a few words. Just the way our number 10 receiver likes it.
Marvin Harrison is, of the guys on the list, is the guy that most emulates my game. He plays hard, he runs great routes, he catches the football, and he's a quiet guy.
Just because he doesn't do commercials, just because he doesn't use a Sharpie in the end zone, he uses his to sign autographs for fans. He's like the Marcel Marceau of NFL wide receivers.
Send it for Marvin Harrison. He's got it. My goodness, what a great catch. Drops to throw, pump fake, airs it out deep downfield, intended for Marvin Harrison. He got it! Woo! Woo!
How hard do you have to work when you're catching balls from Peyton Manning? Marvin's that type of receiver that was perfect for the offense with Peyton Manning. Marvin didn't play in the slot. Would Marvin lasted in the slot, that would have been the style of offense that they ran. Maybe, maybe not. He's kind of a smaller guy.
People just say, not that he's a product of the system, but boy, how can you not have 1,000 catches with Peyton Manning throwing the football? So maybe people don't give him quite the credit that he deserves.
After all, Peyton may have been throwing, but he went Marvin's way for a reason. The two hooked up more times for more touchdowns than any duo in NFL history. And from 1999 to 2006, Harrison caught a staggering 826 passes, an 8-year total no receiver has ever matched.
What a catch!
He's made some killer catches against us in Baltimore. Peyton threw a great ball. He just ran right past Chris, caught it, double tapped in the back of the end zone, and I just shook my head and said, not again.
If I'm thinking signature catches for Harrison, it's how he is able to keep his feet in bounds.
I remember just seeing Marvin making one-hand catches in the end zone, barely getting 2 feet down, look like he'll break his toe trying to catch the ball.
At New England, on the right sideline of the end zone, Peyton throws a back shoulder pass, and Marvin has to kind of reach back around to get it.
He got it! What a catch! Touchdown!
was such a great catch that Bill Belichick didn't even bother challenging it.
I've seen it before.
It gets nasty every time.
That is nasty right there.
The most amazing catch that I can remember of Marvin was in Tennessee, where he stretches out, catches it with his right hand, and has enough presence to kind of cradle the ball so when he hits the ground, he's not losing the ball. Those are the ones that you just say, did I see that right?
Holy mackerel, what a catch by the great one, Marvin Harrison.
Just missing the cut were some great names with even greater nicknames.
Glue Fingers. Dante Glue Fingers Lavelli. If he touched the ball with one finger, he'd catch it.
Mark Super Duper starred in Miami, but he really belonged at Cape Canaveral.
Mark Duper had twin rockets strapped to his fanny.
Fires for the end zone. It is caught for a touchdown by Mark Duper.
At first glance, the ghost, Dave Casper, didn't knock anyone's socks off or shoes.
He gave you the appearance that he couldn't, pour beer out of a boot.
But his hands were simply divine.
The ball, flip forward is loose. Casper grabbing the ball.
Still, he couldn't hold a candle to the next man on our list.
The number 9 greatest hands of all time, Lynn Swann.
I mean, if it got near him, he caught it.
And Lynn Swann going for it. Swann holds it in for a touchdown. Lynn Swann. I love it. Holy smokes. Going long for Swann. He's got it.
Barry, he catch the ball so quick and you get down with it.
Touchdown, Pittsburgh.
Uncanny ability to make impossible catches.
And the Southern Cal Flyer pulled it in.
And Bradshaw, he loved throwing deep.
Bradshaw out to the far side to Swann, and it is a touchdown all over.
And that's why, because he had a guy like Swann.
First, you have to get the right name to be graceful, okay? You have to be born a Swan. I couldn't invent that. You've got to be born with a good name that says that you're graceful.
In addition to his name, Swann took ballet lessons while in Pittsburgh, which transformed our number 9 pair of hands into a Baryshnikov in cleats.
His body control along the sidelines was unbelievable.
Touchdown, Pittsburgh!
He was the first receiver that I remember that knew how to get his body in position to go get a ball.
When I think of somebody saying acrobatic catch in the National Football League, my mind flashes to pictures of Lynn Swann.
Unbelievable catch for the touchdown.
He was a guy that was beautiful playing the game of football, and I don't know who else I would describe in that same category.
Lynn Swann saw.
Lynn Swann's hands not only captured the admiration of Steelers fans, but also some of the most memorable moments in NFL history.
All you got to look at are the highlights from Super Bowl X. He made his career in that one game.
Unbelievable catch. He looked like a flying circus.
Everybody remembers the juggling catch where he tipped the ball up to himself and caught it back on the way down. I remember the catch along the sidelines. With going up to get it while positioning your body to get both feet down in bounds, you still wonder how he did it.
And for that catch, should probably be the highlight film of any wide receiver that wants to play in the NFL. This is how you do it under pressure.
Swann made just 336 receptions in his career, but it was his hands during 4 Super Bowl wins that put him at number 9 on our list.
It was his postseasons that he elevated himself, literally and figuratively.
Swann makes a circus catch in the end zone. Unbelievable catch for the touchdown.
This is a guy who was at his best when the stakes were the highest.
He's got it! Swann, touchdown, Pittsburgh!
He wouldn't be Lynn Swann today if it wasn't for those Super Bowls.
And the Super Steelers are the champions of the National Football League.
The number 8 greatest hands of all time, Sterling Sharpe.
Sterling Sharpe! What a catch!
Hi there. See if we can get you guys excited today.
Sterling Sharpe's NFL career was short and often forgotten.
Wide open! Sterling Sharpe!
He was the first receiver to catch 100 balls in back-to-back seasons. 5 times he was All-Pro. 3 times he led the league in receiving.
Caught by Sterling Sharpe. There's a new record.
And twice he broke the single-season reception mark. Oh, and he only played 7 seasons.
Sterling is probably one of the most underrated receivers in the history of the National Football League.
He didn't have a very long career, so it's easy to forget about him and overlook him. He didn't talk to the media when he played, so he didn't get a lot of attention. I think more people probably know about him as a broadcaster than he did as a player.
Hello there, and welcome to the AFC edition of Playbook. You come out at the end.
As an analyst for the NFL Network, Sterling Sharp now speaks with his hands. As a Green Bay Packer, his hands spoke for themselves.
I remember before every practice and before every game, John Gruden was throwing him 100 passes, all different catches, from the hand, over here, and he was religious about it.
Diving catch in the corner.
Sterling Sharp had sticky fingers and strong hands and wrists. Would outfight people for the football.
You're not going to get up on the line of scrimmage and press him. He's too tough. He brought a mentality to the position that nobody had really played it with in a long time. I mean, he was thick.
Sterling Sharp could play wide receiver, a running back mentality. He could probably play linebacker in the NFL.
Guess who? Sterling Sharp.
In traffic, seemed to have complete disregard for his body, made a lot of tough catches. Clearly the guy would stick his head in there to make a play, which obviously not every receiver has.
Get him up, Sterling! Get him, baby!
A Packer for all of his 7 seasons, our number 8 selection won just 2 playoff games. In 1994, a neck injury ended his run just as Brett Favre started his.
Think back to Favre's first year, and it was just as much Sterling Sharp being dominant as Favre coming onto the scene. Sharp was probably the best receiver in the NFL that year.
He was a great receiver, and he had the injury, and he would have been listed high statistically in every category had he not had that neck injury.
He was one of the great ones, and I think had his career not ended early, he would have been in the Hall of Fame. And I think he'll tell you that he deserves a place in Canton.
That was another Sterling performance.
They call me the freak, man.
Why they call you the freak?
Because I'm a freak of nature.
Randy Moss has made plenty of freakish catches over the years, but he was unable to crack our top 10.
We are not drunk. This is accurate.
Golly!
Isaac Bruce's great hands helped create the greatest show on turf, but he didn't make it to our center ring. After 16 seasons with the Raiders, Tim Brown is the Silver and Black's all-time leader in receptions.
Looks one left, wide open, Brown, touchdown, Raiders!
But Oakland's Mr. Raider can't compete with the San Francisco Tree.
The number 7 greatest hands of all time, Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice has the best hands on the planet.
He's number 7.
Oh, my God, 7? Who's doing this survey, man?
I don't believe he's number 7. Why is he number 7?
He's the best overall receiver, it's Jerry Rice and everybody else. I mean, that's how it is.
Yeah, you're not talking about the best receiver. You're just talking about the best hands.
But hands.
Yes, hands. If this list was the top 10 wide receivers of all time, we would no doubt have number 80 at number 1. But when it comes to greatest hands, Mr. Rice is number 7 on our countdown.
I understand that they're not talking about, the greatest receiver, but Jerry Rice had a great pair of hands. You don't amass the type of yardage that he had without a great pair of mittens on him.
I think the thing is Jerry Rice always put himself in position. He almost didn't even notice the catch. The ball seemingly just kind of floated into his hands and stuck, that you didn't notice how well he tucked the football away or how well he received the football. He had quiet hands, I'd like to think of.
Jerry Rice didn't need to have great hands because he had Joe Montana putting it right there.
Throws a pass, Jerry Rice, touchdown 49ers.
Maybe he suffered from the fact that he played with Joe Montana and Steve Young, who kind of put the ball in great spots all the time.
To the end zone, caught, Jerry Rice.
It would be interesting to see what Jerry Rice would have been if he'd been on a team that didn't have Joe Montana or then Steve Young.
Did John Lennon make Paul McCartney, or did Paul McCartney make John Lennon,
The one thing that's pretty amazing about Jerry Rice's hands is that he developed them the old-fashioned way, by catching bricks.
Well, believe it or not, my father, he's a bricklayer, and he used to take me to work with him.
And his dad used to toss him bricks on the ladder. This is what they did for a living, and Jerry Rice would catch bricks.
I guess that's the reason why I'm so able to catch footballs.
Touchdown pass to Jerry Rice.
It's like, a football? What's that compared to these bricks I've been catching all my life?
Makes another great catch, fingertip catch.
It's one of those things, probably a job he wasn't too excited about as a kid, but it sure paid dividends for him.
Jerry Rice is back in the end zone. Launches it down the right side. Rice is there. Oh, my! A one-handed catch.
He would catch everything that was thrown to him.
Rice makes another great catch.
I don't remember him ever dropping a ball.
Could it be that after 20 amazing NFL seasons that Jerry Rice never once dropped a ball?
One-handed catch, touchdown!
Did Jerry Rice ever drop one? Sure, we're all human.
I saw Rice drop some balls. Plus, he had that terrible fumble against the '86 Giants.
Montana quickly to Jerry Rice, and he's got some speed. He drops the ball. Rice chases it, doesn't come up with it, goes into the end zone. The scramble continues, and the Giants come up with it.
Because of that play alone, I don't put him in the list.
Tell you, that is unbelievable.
It was not a drop in the literal sense where he dropped the pass, but he had the ball in his hands, and as he was making his break for daylight, he did literally drop the ball. It was Jerry Rice's drop. It was a painful one, but maybe he had to experience that pain to get him to return the next year, which was a record-setting year for him.
In 1987, during a strike-shortened season, Rice caught an NFL record 22 touchdowns in just 12 games. He owns 38 NFL career records, which is good enough for Canton, but only number 7 on our list.
Jerry Rice has set every single record that has ever been significant in receiving.
Number 1 in pro football history in touchdown reception.
And in my mind, he has the best pure hands of any wide receiver in the history of the National Football League. Certainly caught more balls than any wide receiver in the history of the National Football League.
A play that if you're a 49er fan, you've seen 100 times over the years.
Caught more passes than anybody else, and you got to have hands for that.
The number 6 greatest hands of all time, Kellen Winslow.
Number 6 for Kellen. I think he should be in top 5.
He's a good offensive player, but I wouldn't put Kellen Winslow up there. Who compiled this list?
His place on our list may be debatable, but there's no questioning Kellen Winslow's numbers.
Caught by Winslow.
One of only 7 tight ends in the Hall of Fame, he averaged over 60 catches a year for 9 seasons. He was voted to 5 Pro Bowls and 3 All-Pro teams.
You looked at him, and he just had these gigantic arms. When he'd line up in the slot and his arms would be hanging down, you say to yourself, this guy can catch a ball that's 12 feet over his head. No matter what you threw over there, he was going to catch it.
At 6'5", he's an inviting and talented target.
The ball was anywhere close to him. I mean, it was caught.
I mean, you and I could complete passes to Kellen Winslow.
Kellen Winslow, in my opinion, was the best tight end that's ever played in the National Football League.
There have been some really good tight ends before. Mike Ditka, Pete Retzlaff, John Mackey, Jackie Smith. They were tight ends as we always envisioned tight ends. Kellen Winslow was the beginning of a new breed of player.
Probably seen as one of the first of the real athletic tight ends.
The way the tight ends are played today, flexing them out, that hybrid, so to speak, that's what he was.
Over the middle, he's got his wingman, Winslow, touchdown.
We play him as a slot, out as a flanker. We play him, of course, at tight end. And we'll even put him into the backfield if we want to.
And I know we'll forget the game where he caught, it must have been 12, 13 passes in one game.
The Epic in Miami, a 1981 playoff game in which Winslow injured nearly every part of his body except his hands. He set a playoff record that day with 13 catches for over 160 yards.
He was an example of a player that found himself in the perfect system. I mean, when he went to San Diego.
Coryell used the tight end a lot more than other people did, and as offenses began to change, you saw other people doing it. I don't know that Winslow necessarily started anything, but he certainly was a tight end who did some things that people hadn't seen before from that position.
And now, the number 5 greatest hands of all time, Fred Biletnikoff.
Fred Biletnikoff, flanker back from Florida State.
He was not really fast. He was not really big, but he always caught the ball, and he made spectacular catches.
Fred Biletnikoff's remarkable catches during the 60s and 70s made him a superstar and helped him slide into the number 5 spot on our list.
Greatest hand. 5th.
Throws for Biletnikoff. Touchdown Raiders!
No. 5th. Come on.
Throwing to Biletnikoff. Super catch. Touchdown Raiders.
You got to be kidding me.
The moves made on All-Pro safety Johnny Robinson were phenomenal. But the rest, that was pure desire.
He read a defense better than most quarterbacks because he couldn't outrun somebody, he couldn't out-physical somebody, but he had to go find that spot that nobody was in. And nobody was better at finding the open hole than Biletnikoff.
He was a guy who created quite a sensation in his era.
The mystique of the Raiders was born in the 1970s, and it was the hands of Fred Biletnikoff that helped build the Raider Nation.
The will to win has been a dominating theme of the Raider organization, and while no player has epitomized that will more than Fred Biletnikoff, I will remember him most because he hated to lose.
There are Raiders that are Raiders and Oakland Raiders, and Fred Biletnikoff is the ultimate Oakland Raider.
First of all, he had the old school, double bar face mask. Nobody wears that face mask anymore, but he was tough. He had the eye black underneath, and he just epitomized maybe what a real old school, tough wide receiver should play and look like.
He throws one for Biletnikoff, a fine catch at the 15. He's crooned at the 46-yard line of the Chiefs.
And that's kind of a neat thing to see in this day and age, when most guys are just looking for a paycheck or a handout. There is something to Fred Biletnikoff really believing in the silver and black.
Biletnikoff had great hands, but his sticky fingers might be his lasting legacy.
My locker was right next to Freddie's. He would take stickum all over the forearms, all over that tape to make it a real sticky surface, and he would put it on the inside of his sock on each side, and that was his supply during the course of a game. When he needed stickum, he reached down and get the stickum off his socks.
The equipment manager, Dick Romanski, came out to me and had pulled out this jar of stickum. He says, start using some of this, and that's how I got started using it.
He had stickum oozing off his elbows. He had it on his legs. He had it on his forearms.
And oh my, he must have had stickum on his fingers for that one.
Well, it wasn't illegal, so you can use it. Any chance to get an edge, the Raiders of the 70s were going to get an edge.
With the Raiders, we always said cheating was encouraged, until they found out about it, and they finally outlawed it.
The NFL banned stickum in 1980, 4 years after Biletnikoff was named MVP of Super Bowl 11.
Super Bowl, he made a real clutch catch.
Snake threw the ball about an inch off the ground. He goes down and gets it. The only place that Kenny could get it to him, he did it.
A brilliant work of art by the master of his position, Fred Biletnikoff.
Best hands in the NFL ever.
Fred Biletnikoff's playmaking has stood the test of time, and our number 5 greatest pair of hands has become the standard for future generations of receivers.
Fred Biletnikoff made a great catch.
Well, the Biletnikoff Award is given every year for the top receiver in college football.
He's the only receiver on your list that has an award named after him for receivers. What does that say?
He looks, he's throwing deep for Biletnikoff behind Clark, and he's got it! Touchdown Raiders! Long pass, Biletnikoff makes the catch! Touchdown Raiders!
Fred deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. Fred deserved to be 1 or 2 on that best hands list.
The number 4 greatest hands of all time, Larry Fitzgerald.
Larry Fitzgerald could catch a bee with chopsticks.
Well, it's kind of hard to put him at number 4.
I don't know that he's quite done enough yet to deserve number 4 all time.
The list is backwards. No, he's working his way up.
To be that high on the list may be a little bit too premature.
I would say it is too much too soon.
That's what Larry Fitzgerald does best.
We were joking during the Super Bowl run that the Cardinals had. We were calling him on the air Jerry Rice Gerald. And people were saying, hey, easy, easy.
We got to rearrange this whole thing. He needs to be on the list, but Jerry Rice needs to be a bit higher.
This first half, it's the Larry Fitzgerald show.
He's unbelievably gifted. Those of us who have covered him since he was a rookie, you saw that really from the first day he stepped on the practice field. His quarterbacks, they'll tell you, we have to adjust our game in throwing to him because the definition of the word covered changes.
How many times have we seen Kurt Warner throw the ball into double coverage? But with Larry, you say, I'm going to give him a chance. Throw it up nice and tall, and he's going to go out rebound somebody.
You almost want him to be covered because then comes a moment where the defensive back thinks he has you,
And then he has to cover that third dimension, the vertical dimension.
He is unbelievable.
He has this incredible gift of jumping at the right time, getting the ball at its peak.
Some tall receivers have it, and some tall receivers have alligator arms. Like this. They want to protect their ribs a little bit. Not Larry.
Even when he goes up high, he's not catching it at his shoulder. When Larry goes up high, he's catching it up above his head.
The one in the Super Bowl, where he went over the defender and plugged the ball is kind of his signature play. In 2007, the Hail Mary at the end of the half against the 49ers. It's like this Venus flytrap. The ball is there, and he comes down with it.
He's the youngest man on our list and maybe the most controversial, but don't let his inexperience fool you.
He was a guy, he was a ball boy with the Minnesota Vikings. He was working out with guys like Randy Moss and Chris Carter. And when you train with those kind of wide receivers, you're going to develop the kind of hand-eye coordination that allows you to be one of the best in the National Football League.
He went up and got that.
Throughout this decade, there's been all these busts at receiver in the draft, whether it's been Charles Rogers or Mike Williams or Troy Williamson. Larry Fitzgerald, though, is taken so high in that draft and has exceeded expectations.
Touchdown, Larry Fitzgerald!
It kind of shows that if you do have that stud receiver, it's worth taking him in the first round because there might be no more lethal weapon in the entire league than Larry Fitzgerald.
Some of the game's greatest pass catchers earned a place in Canton, but not a place on our countdown. Lance Alworth earned the nickname Bambi for his grace, but often overlooked was his ability to catch anything in his vicinity.
He could do everything, catch the ball long, catch the ball short.
I really have yet to see the equal to Lance Alworth as a receiver.
Wide receiver Charlie Taylor's soft hands helped him grab 649 catches before retiring as the game's career receptions leader.
You could always go to him. You knew that he was going to make the tough catch for you.
He was an awesome wide receiver.
Don Hudson is credited with creating many modern pass routes, but he got passed over.
Hudson streaks down the field to receive it. Look out, fellas.
Also just missing the list is future Hall of Famer tight end Tony Gonzalez.
Tony had to be on there somewhere.
Touchdown!
Tony Gonzalez has unbelievable hands.
Gonzalez with a remarkable catch.
He broke all the records at tight end. He's still making catches today.
Most touchdowns, most catches, most receiving yards by a tight end in NFL history.
While those Hall of Fame caliber hands didn't make the list, our next Hall of Famer did.
The number 3 greatest hands of all time, Steve Largent.
When people talk about the great receivers in football, they don't mention Largent to me nearly often enough.
Largent's got a touchdown, Seahawks.
He got open, he caught the football, he scored touchdowns.
The end zone to Largent, touchdown, Seahawks.
He made first downs. You really saw the ball hit the turf.
I think his best asset is he understands the game, and that helps me out a lot because he makes adjustments. Being as smart as he is, don't take that to your head, son.
Right, Jimmy. You forgot to tell him about my hands.
And he's got great hands.
At number 3 on our countdown, Steve Largent's hands were good enough for a Hall of Fame career. But if this list was based on appearance, you'd think he'd be better at filing tax returns than catching post patterns.
The thing that I always noticed about him was how open he got.
Largent wide open at the 10. He's got it. Touchdown, Seahawks. How did Steve Largent get so wide open?
He doesn't look real fast. He's like one of the smallest guys on the field. How does this guy always get open? And how is he always catching the ball over somebody that's bigger than him?
The end zone, touchdown, Seahawks to Largent.
I don't think he could outrun me, and I can't run very fast. But the thing is, he'll run a slant pattern. He'll run it 4 different ways.
He could set up guys and just humiliate them.
Throws to him in the corner of the end zone, touchdown, Seahawks.
He embarrassed people with his route running.
Your ability to be a great athlete and your ability to be a football player are 2 different things. And I think he was a tremendous football player.
For Largent, he's in the clear. He makes the grab. Touchdown, Seahawks.
I'm not a great athlete, but I think I'm a good football player. I've played for a long time, and I know a lot about the game. And because I've been around for a long time now, my football instincts are pretty good.
Ball is caught. Touchdown, Seahawks.
They would always say that the one thing that Largent can do well is catch the ball. I may not have been the fastest guy, run deep routes or anything like that, but I would catch the ball if it was thrown near me.
It's easy to appreciate Largent's talents in retrospect, but in 1976, the Houston Oilers drafted Largent in the 4th round, where he was soon traded to Seattle for an 8th-round pick.
You talk to anybody associated with the Houston Oilers at that time, and they'll probably admit that's the greatest mistake they ever made. And he comes to Seattle, and he's not real big, and he's not real fast. And if you were watching them practice that first day, you would not pick him out of the line to even make the team, let alone become the receiver he was.
But by the time he retired, he had caught more passes than any receiver in the history of this league.
Quick throw short. He's got a reception by Largent, who makes the catch and now becomes the all-time career receiving leader in the National Football League.
It wasn't just career catches, career yards, touchdown catches, all that kind of stuff. I mean, he had that long streak of consecutive receptions. It goes into the most seasons with 50 catches and all that kind of stuff.
Pump it now, let's throw to the end zone. There it is. Touchdown Seahawks, number 100.
Largent played his entire career with the Seahawks, so while he's number 3 on our countdown, he'll always be number 1 in Seattle.
And he made plays for the Seahawks for so long.
He makes the grab. Touchdown Seahawks.
They've never had a receiver like him, and I don't know if they ever will have another receiver like a Steve Largent.
Has it. Touchdown Seahawks.
Any list of great receivers you put together, regardless of era, should have Steve Largent on it.
An entire position went noticeably missing from our list.
The fact that there's not a running back. Are you kidding me?
You have no idea how pissed I am right now.
There's a few that definitely belong on there. Larry Centers.
What a catch. That is remarkable.
Larry Centers is the best pure pass receiving fullback in the National Football League since the days of Roger Craig.
Come on, begging you to put me on, man. I need you, man.
Roger Craig changed the running back position in 1985 by rushing and receiving for 1,000 yards.
He really revolutionized the running back position by utilizing his hands and his skills as a receiver.
I'll throw myself into the mix a little bit.
Marshall Faulk matched Craig's achievement in 1999.
Great leaping catch.
And grabbed 767 career receptions.
Marshall Faulk is the best receiving back I've ever seen.
What an over-the-shoulder catch.
I can't believe that we are not on this list. Not one guy on this list.
The number 2 greatest hands of all time, Raymond Berry.
He was one of the best in the game back then, maybe the best.
Who had better hands than Raymond Berry?
Hey, he caught some balls. I don't know how he did them.
Raymond Berry's in the Hall of Fame, and he's in the Hall of Fame for one reason and one reason only. He caught everything thrown his way.
As a Baltimore Colt, Berry wasn't very fast, but like the old saying goes, appearances can be deceiving.
He did have speed.
He wasn't that fast.
He wore contact lenses.
Dirt slow, I believe he would tell you. He didn't have anything that would make a scout say, ooh, that guy's going to be the phenomenal receiver he became when you were watching him running around in shorts. But once he put a football uniform on and the team had to rely on him and the town had to rely on him, click, click, Hall of Famer.
What happened to that thumb? Or your pinky? What happened to your pinky?
Multiple dislocations when I was a rookie.
His hands may not be pretty, but his catches were. Our number 2 selection seemingly caught everything thanks to an incredible attention to detail.
I don't know that I've ever met anybody who has committed more to succeed at something than Raymond really did as a player.
He'd walk around on the day of a game or in the days leading up to a game with a football just so he'd constantly have the feel of it in his hands.
After each game and after each practice, he would take meticulous notes about where to break off a route.
Raymond Berry understood that playing wide receiver was really an art. You had to understand how to run routes, that you had to time that up with the quarterback.
Berry's quarterback happened to be Johnny Unitas, maybe the greatest of all time. Together, they formed quite a marriage.
Unitas to Berry were to the Colts what Gable was to Garbo in the movies and Jagger to Richards in the Rolling Stones.
There wasn't a lot of dialogue between them. They'd just run routes, play catch.
One of the drills he used to do was just a net drill, and he'd stand in front of it and have Unitas throw about 40 or 50 or 60 passes after practice.
Even in warm-up, they'd come out on the field early, they'd just throw it until they just became one.
A week before training camp, went to training camp, he'd come up and we'd work out on a high school field, and he'd have a brown box, and inside the box he'd have letters, W, B, I, Y, H. You know, after about 3/4 of an hour, I said, Raymond, what the hell are those letters in that box? Oh, he says it's a reminder for me as I'm coming off the ball to watch the ball into your hands. That's Raymond.
There's a story that John Unitas and Raymond Berry were so adept at their little square out that they would go out in the dark with no lights on a field, and Unitas would throw the square out 10 times and Berry would catch it 8.
Unitas and Berry had their biggest of days on the grandest of stages when in the 1958 NFL Championship game they hooked up 12 times for 178 yards.
Look at the catches this guy made going down the field for that last drive to tie the game to get them into overtime. You knew 3rd and 7 that they were going to run that little square out that you've seen him catch 20,000 times, and yet he's going to catch it. Why? Because he's going to run that route right to the tip, and Johnny U was going to throw it high and outside, and he was going to snatch it.
Every 12-yard out for Raymond Berry was special. Every pass Unitas threw, he treasured. And that's why you see a guy who gets his hands on the ball, he doesn't lose the ball, because he understands, these are my tools. I better treasure these. If I take care of them, they'll take care of me.
And now, the #1 greatest hands of all time, Cris Carter.
Last season, these hands caught 122 passes.
It is Carter!
All Cris Carter does is catch touchdowns. That's what he did. He just caught touchdowns.
Oh, man! Carter does it again.
His range to catch the football was amazing.
What a catch by Carter!
He looks like he's playing in the Matrix. He's just doing all types of crazy catches.
Cris Carter with a one-hand grab!
Cris Carter had great hands. That was his #1 attribute.
When you catch that one-handed, where do you put him in your?
Well, I catch the point of it there. Yeah. I try to catch the point right there, and then every once in a while I bring my other hand over to trap it. But normally I'm just trying to stop it with the point. The ball's coming, catch the point of it, pull it in, or bring this other hand on it.
Cris Carter may be #1 on our countdown because he literally only needed one hand to catch the ball.
It's like, did he just catch that?
Deep downfield, it is to Carter. One-hand catch. Did he make it? Did he make it? Yes! What a catch! Touchdown! Greatest catch I've ever seen.
Carter is the best one-handed receiver I've ever seen.
I don't know if Elias keeps statistics on one-handed catches, but I would imagine Cris Carter would be at the top of that category.
Cris Carter with a one-hand grab!
I mean, I've seen Carter talking to somebody standing next to him and catch a pass with one hand and while he was still in the middle of a sentence.
But Carter's uncanny abilities weren't reserved just for one-hand grabs.
Cris Carter is the best boundary receiver I ever saw, and that's including Jerry Rice.
Backing up, George looks, cocks and throws to Carter. Touchdown!
Knew where the sideline was, knew where the back line of the end zone was, knew where the goal line was. Tremendous field presence.
What a catch by Carter!
You want to talk about getting your toes in while you make a catch on your, literally on your, to use the phrase, tippy toes. That would be Cris Carter.
Carter's career began in Philadelphia, where he almost dropped the ball on life, and head coach Buddy Ryan cut Carter after just 3 seasons.
He did show some promise in that he was a guy who caught the ball constantly, but he also had those behind-the-scenes problems.
He had issues with, I believe he'll be the first to admit, with some substance problems.
The reason why he cut me was not based on my ability, but he cut me because of my substance abuse, and he didn't think he could depend on me anymore.
And Buddy Ryan probably did Cris Carter the biggest favor of his career and letting him know he had to change his ways if he was ever going to become a great player.
And then Cris went on to Minnesota, and everything changed. I mean, he got his life together. That's when his talent really took off.
Touchdown! What a catch! Throws it deep to Cris Carter. Touchdown, Vikings!
Every good man I know been through something.
Cris Carter has yet to be voted into the Hall of Fame, but for now, you can find him at the #1 spot for having the greatest hands in NFL history.
If I had to jump out of a burning building, I would hope that Cris Carter would be there to catch me.
Culpepper to the end zone, throws to Carter. Got it!
I always said there was one NFL guy that I would pay to see play, and it was Cris Carter. I thought he just had the best hand-eye coordination of any receiver ever.
Keeping the feet inbound.
The way that guy could get his hands close to a ball and on a ball, I don't think we've seen anybody else like that consistently who could catch the way that he could.
We've reached the end of our countdown, and if you don't agree with some of our choices, well, you're not alone.
Cris Carter can't be number one on this list. I'm sorry.
No way. Cris Carter?
Oh, number one. Number one by far is Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice at 7? That's, man.
No way. You're kidding me.
I'd put Swan somewhere between, and this is up to date, this is modern concluding, I'd put him around 20.
I think it's a little premature to have Larry Fitzgerald at, I think, number 4. Yeah, I think that's a little bit too high right now.
That's what I'm saying. Look at my fingers. I should be giving some credit.